Welcome to another edition of Tell Me Your Story, the Health Muse is in. And this is going to be a very different kind of podcast because this is going to be me telling my story on an interview for someone else's podcast. And it occurred to me when I listened to this, because it's a great interview, that I have never really shared my entire story with you. So this was Joey Pinz's second conversation in a brand new podcast that he's doing called Discipline Conversations. And it was such a great interview. It occurred to me that I haven't really shared my whole story with you. So I hope you will indulge me. This is a great way to hear all of the information that got me started on my own health journey. And then a couple of weeks from now, I'm hoping to bring Joey back and interview him as a Tell Me Your Story candidate, because he's lost well over 100 pounds, and I want you to hear his story as well. And that's why he was looking for disciplined conversations, because that's what his new podcast is called. And I hope you will go and listen to his shows, because they're with terrific guests and are also very interesting in terms of changing life by getting disrupted and not doing things the same old way that they had always been done. So, welcome to Tell Me Your Story, Cheryl Meyer being interviewed by Joey Pinz.
Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic. I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Cheryl Meyer, a health coach, the health muse. At 63, she found herself in immense pain. She's working too much, dedicated to her job, like so many Americans. She went and saw a doctor, got all these kinds of tests. Doctor told her there's nothing wrong, and we're going to put you on steroids. So that was unacceptable. She went and saw a functional MD, completely changed her life. She went and got her nutrition coach license, or her certificate. And now she's 70 years old, and she finished a book, It Feels Good to Feel Good. It's all removing toxins from your life, sugar, and getting in shape without going on a diet. It's just an incredible story. What we need to do to remove toxins, organic food, remove it from water, from our cleaning. She found herself with chronic illness, inflammation, and autoimmune disease, and what she did to turn it all around. And now she has, like I said, all these blogs, all these podcasts, books. She's just incredible story. Learn what to do. Learn how you can remove toxins in your life with Cheryl Meyer. It's a great conversation. Thanks for listening. How are you? So are you in Arizona right now?
I'm in Arizona right now. We're in beautiful Sedona.
Oh, very nice. So what's the temperature in August?
It's actually pretty much the same as LA, but this summer it's been a little cooler.
Really?
And we love it here in the summer. We call ourselves reverse snowbirds because we get rain in the afternoons. This is monsoon season. And being a California kid, having thunderstorms and listening to the rain come down, and it only lasts about an hour, and then we get the most sensational rainbows over the red rocks.
Oh,
So
beautiful.
I'm like a little kid here in the summer. And it's
Very,
not
very good.
tourist season. This is a town of 10,000 people that gets 10 million visitors.
Wow.
So summer's really the time to be here because you're not in long lines of traffic. Although when you're in long lines of traffic, unlike LA where you're in tall buildings, you have gorgeous red rocks around you.
Good point. Very good. Wow.
So
So tell me how you got, your story is just absolutely incredible. How you got into toxins. I watched you and read you, but I'd like to hear it.
yeah, I tripped into it, literally.
Okay.
I had my own business. I was a solopreneur. I was running my own jewelry business. I was selling all the big box retailers, Macy's, JCPenney, Amazon. Um, and I wasn't paying any attention to my own health because I was working 24/7. So there were signs that my toxic load was building up, but I ignored them until the 2x4 came down over my head and I couldn't get out of bed, literally. So I went 4 times to the doctor. She ran 4 rounds of tests and then she called me and said, well, there's nothing wrong with you. I said, that's ludicrous because I hurt and something is wrong. She said, well, I'm going to give you steroids, but what I really want you to do is seek mental therapy. And I said, okay, number one, why would I take steroids if there's nothing wrong with me? It's not going to happen. I said, number two, something's wrong with me and I'm going to go find it. And I was really lucky. I swear to God, there was an angel's hand on my back because I tripped into the functional medical community. And at the time they were running multiple symposiums about what was different about functional medicine to conventional medicine. And I watched 19 of them with multiple doctors.
Wow.
And they all had become functional. They were all regular. I mean, my doctor, who I ended up with 3 years down the pike, went to Yale. They went to big name medical schools, but they became functional because they could not help themselves. And so I listened to all of these and I started writing down what the threads were. There was something called toxic load. Okay, made sense. Wasn't paying any attention to what was in my environment, so I probably had that. I probably had something called leaky gut. So I wrote down, I needed to find out what was leaky gut. I probably had too much stress. Friends had already been pulling me aside and telling me that stress accumulated and I needed to do something about it. So I knew I had too much stress. And the one thing that showed up on conventional testing was that I was almost so low in cortisol, I was almost to Addison's disease. So that's where I started. I started taking yoga classes from a Tao Korean group and discovered all kinds of 3-minute breathing exercises and moving exercises that reset my parasympathetic nervous system to release my stress. And then from there, I went to the giant database in the sky called EWG.org, the Environmental Working Group. They're known mostly because they put out a Dirty Dozen Clean 15 vegetable list every year. And if it's on the dirty side, it could have as many as 87 toxins on it. So if it's on the dirty side, you absolutely eat it organic. I didn't even really understand the difference between organic, conventional produce, and genetically modified, which had been on the ballot in California. And there was so much misinformation about it, it lost. So that's where I dug in. First thing I looked up were my cosmetics. French, very expensive, a 9 on a 10-point scale. And I went, oh my God, I am poisoning myself right through my skin.
9
So
to
I
10 in toxicity.
Yeah, AWG does different scales, but on food, it's all on a 10-point scale, and on cosmetics and cleaning supplies, 10-point scale. A 9. I was literally. And it ends up, cosmetics are not regulated by our government at all. They self-regulate. Isn't that ducky? But I went back to the beginning and I started looking up all the ingredients in my food. I was eating a tremendous amount of processed food because when I was getting it home at night, I was eating as fast as I was working all day and I wanted things that were quick. So I was eating frozen processed food, box processed food. I was driving through fast food. And as I began to learn more about that, I realized that that was a big part of the pain because health is wealth, and it all starts with food, and food is medicine. So that's where I started. I learned there's another group called Institute for Responsible Technology. I learned all about GMOs from him. I watched movies. I watched videos. Literally, I was lucky because I had such a well-trained staff in my business. They were running it. I was going in once a week and saying, "You're doing a great job. Keep going." And I was researching how to get rid of my pain. By the time I was done, I was eating only organic. I had eliminated toxins in dozens and dozens of products in my own life. I had replaced my water system under my kitchen sink so that that was the water I was drinking and cooking with. But eventually I put in an entire home system because, again, I was poisoning myself with what was coming through my water right through my skin. Um, and everything I looked up, at first I got really angry. Why was my government not protecting me? And then I decided we all need to be our own advocates, and we need to take care of what we can do for ourselves and then join with others who have similar interests. So by the time I was done, 3 years down the road, I found my own functional doctor. I drive an hour to see her. There's another organization called ifm.org. You can put your zip code in and find everybody who's been trained functionally in your area. And that includes naturopaths, medical doctors, nurse practitioners, nutritionists, everything. So I started calling them all. I called 50 people to find out if any of them took insurance. The one I found did. I drive an hour to see her, and honest to God, she took me the rest of the way home and was worth everything about traveling to her, and she will always be my doctor. I love her to death. The difference between functional and conventional, she didn't run any of the same tests as my conventional doctor. Thyroid checked me from here to here. She checked me from here to my adrenals. That's where I was broken. Conventional checked me for allergies. Only thing I was allergic to was the tape that held the test on my back. Functional doctor tested me for sensitivities. Sensitivities cause the slow burn of inflammation. I had 18 of them. By eliminating those 18 foods was my first big giant step away from the pain. So the whole thing was like this amazing treasure hunt to discover what the heck was going on with my body. And I was 63 at the time. And I decided that I was going to go back to school. I went back to school at 67 because I was running into women everywhere who were as frustrated as I was, who were getting absolutely no answers from their conventional doctor, who didn't have a clue what was wrong with them. Sorry, conventional medicine, but you're looking at it wrong. And I wasn't a person who was just going to take pills. I wanted to know why my body was broken, and functional answered that. And I discovered things. If I were young, I wouldn't have just gone back to become a health coach. I would have become a biochemist because I am fascinated with all of this. But I was 68 when I graduated from coaching school. I have a BA in English from Berkeley, but I didn't think anybody was going to give me any credibility for the intensive research I had done to fix my own health, which is why I wanted to go back and get certified as a coach. And when I graduated from coaching school, they asked me if I had a book I'd like to write. And I kept everything organized in file folders on my computer and said, wow, this book is waiting to happen. So I started writing the book in November of 2016. It's 450 pages long, and it was completed by January 15th. I swear to God, I channeled it. It just came off my fingertips. And what it is, the first book is called It Feels Good to Feel Good, Learn to Eliminate Toxins, Reduce Your Inflammation, and Feel Better Again. It's my journey knowing absolutely nothing or even where to start. And I explain everything like a layman in detail for other people who have chronic illness and inflammation who don't know what's wrong, because I wanted it to be the handbook that I wish I'd had when I got sick. That book has now won 17 awards.
I saw that. Congratulations.
And then my doctor really urged me to write the second part of it, which is, okay, Ducky, I'm a very social person. How do I live in the real world and not be surrounded with toxins? How do I eat organic and clean? What do I do? How do I go out to restaurants? Because believe it or not, they now buy their food in little baggies that get zapped and arranged on the plate that are loaded with the same chemicals and sugar and salt that the box processed food and the frozen processed food is. And those are, I think that's the ground level of what's making us sick. There's toxins everywhere, but that's where you start. And so the second book covers all of my tips on how do I go to somebody else's house for dinner? I take my own food and I call them and I say, oh, we're really excited that we're coming to your house for dinner, but I hope you don't mind. I have chronic illness, and so I'm going to bring something everybody can eat, but that I can eat too. And
Wow.
I'm coming because I really want to get to know you and your friends. And I don't want you to have to cook special for me. I bought paleo cookbooks for everyone in my family. So when I go to their house, they find something that I can't eat that they cook for me. I vet a restaurant before I ever walk in there. And it's all about learning not to be afraid to ask for what you want. If there is a restaurant that's buying real food, that's buying real vegetables, they're more than thrilled to work around my diet and my idiosyncrasies. And generally the chef will come out to meet me when I come to eat there because they're excited that they got to do something for someone who told them how not to make them sick. Um, it's been a fascinating journey. Now, I was also in a toxic relationship when I got sick. He looked at me one morning and said, I don't like it that you're sick. I said, grand, what would you like me to do about that? So obviously we broke up. I took a class because I decided at 63 I wasn't very good at this relationship stuff. Took a class from a woman named Allison Armstrong, and I chose her because her class was for men who love women and the women who love them. And at the end of the first weekend, she looked at me and said, Cheryl, your problem is you're trying to fit into his life. You're not putting out there exactly what you want to have him fit into your life. So when you come back next weekend, I want to see that list. Well, I posted that list on the old fogey dating site, and my current husband answered in 3 days and lived 10 minutes away from me. And he wanted to go on a get well journey with me. He had just lost his wife of 43 years to cancer. And so what he said to me is, I've gained a lot of weight, but if you give me a chance, I'd love to go on a get well journey with you. And I'm probably the nicest guy you'll ever meet. And he was. And he's a statistician. So he edited all my books. He produces my podcasts. He's my partner in crime. And he is a statistician. So we just put together a big questionnaire that I hope to have out by January so people can figure out where they are with toxic load so they don't miss it like I did. So we're working on a series of projects together. And he's now started to write his own book about how not to be afraid of death because when his wife got sick, her friends didn't want to come see her because they didn't know what to say to her. And I had a similar situation with one of my closest friends who died from cancer. So I think it's an important subject to tackle, just like the health thing that I tackled. So that's kind of in a nutshell how I ended up being a health coach. Um, and
My
my
goodness.
my goal, my passion, my mission is to get this information out to other people. And I redid the book. It published in 2017. I republished it at the beginning of 2020 because I made the umbrella bigger because I learned that inflammation is all chronic illness. It's not just autoimmune. It's cancer, it's heart disease, it's diabetes, it's the whole ball of wax. And it is more than half of our population. And the functional community actually believes one reason we've been hit so hard by COVID is that it's 80% of the population who don't have strong enough immune systems to fend off the virus. So I really want to get this information out. I've done over 200 guest podcasts so that I could get to the
Wow.
people that they are who are listening to them with my information so that they have a jumping off point. And really the reason I wrote the first book is so that nobody had the EWG is a marvelous website, but it is not exactly
Mhm.
user friendly. And it's gotten better over the 9 years since I first got in there. But I wanted to give everyone an opportunity to know what I ended up with that was less toxic, so that as they ran out of the old icky thing, they had at least one thing that they could buy to replace it while they were researching, but might have been a better choice for them. And lots of products have come out since I started choosing products 9 years ago. Tons of new cosmetic companies that are organic. There was only one when I started. So the world is changing. And there was a guy in coaching school called Howard Lyman. Howard Lyman is the one who got Oprah into trouble over the cows and the meat because
Oh,
he was a
yeah.
rancher who talked about how disgusting conventional ranching was. Well, he had a quote that we all need to become armies of one. And then we need to join together to make change. And the Institute for Responsible Technology believes it only takes a 5% shift before big food, big chemical, big pharma all start to shift because they don't want to lose that money. So
Hmm.
that's why products are starting to progress. I won't see it all, but at least I want to be part of the solution.
Fantastic. Now, you went 63 years before this discovery. You say you
It came,
woke up one day and
yep.
you felt it. So if this didn't
And
happen, you would have continued on that trend.
yep. And I was feeling, little things were happening. I was looking in the mirror in the morning and I was all puffy some mornings. And it's not a good day. I don't look pretty today. There were
Hmm.
days when I'd get a random rash down one side of my body.
Wow.
I had no idea where it was coming from. I was having all kinds of what my family called agita, stomach upset, acid reflux. I didn't know what it was from. Um, at one point, I was put on a medication that I had to take. I'm allergic to aspirin, so I had to take Tylenol so I could tolerate the medication. That made no sense to me, but it ends up because I took Tylenol my whole life. It did all kinds of havoc to my liver. So I am just to the point where my liver is starting to come back into health. And liver is the number one cause of heart disease. So had I continued, lots of things would have happened to me. And there is something called multiple system autoimmune disease. I caught mine early because I caught it right when I toppled over into pain. But sometimes people get 2, 3, 4 different chronic illnesses and don't know that they have the power to do something about it. So it's all pretty amazing that we have more power than they've ever let us know. And the kinds of things I discovered, I was shocked about. Medical schools were started by pharmaceutical companies.
Hmm.
I didn't know that. And
I didn't
they
either.
still are funded by pharmaceutical companies. So who's your doctor? Your conventional doctor's number one source for information? The pharmaceutical rep that comes to see him. So the average appointment is 5, maybe 7 minutes. I would say that's probably stretching it. They listen for the first symptom and then a pill comes down the chute and you're on your way. I used to walk out and go, but I didn't tell her this, and this. I had used up my time. He was done
Wow.
with me. I was on my way to go get my prescription. And a functional doctor can prescribe pills. As I said, my doctor went to Yale, but she starts with the holistic solution first. And if that works, we never go to the pharmaceutical. And they know about tests. I discovered I have a whole genetic anomaly from both my parents called MTHFR, which means I am deficient in folate, and what goes in my body stays in my body. So I was loaded with heavy toxic metals.
Hmm.
I was loaded. I had mold in my office. I'm still struggling trying to get the mold out of my body because my body doesn't want to give it up. But my conventional doctor probably doesn't even know what MTHFR is. So that would have never been addressed. And that actually came up because I said to my doctor when I first met her, I popped out allergic to Pittsburgh when I was born. And she
Hmm.
said, all right, I know you're making a joke, but what does that mean? I said, my dad got me out of there when I was 5 because I already had severe allergies and he didn't think I would survive if he didn't get me out of Pittsburgh. So we ran the test. And sure enough, I have MTHFR, which says I did have all those toxic metals from Pittsburgh in
Wow.
my body still. Um, so, if you're proactive about your own health, and you realize we need our doctors, conventional or otherwise, absolutely, but they're not the who said of the greatest magnitude, which is an old retail term that I learned. You are the expert on your body. Your doctor doesn't live in there. So when he tells you there's nothing wrong with you and that you need mental therapy, he's not living in your body. So he does not know that. So don't accept it. Get proactive and start digging into what can help your own health, and food is a very good place to start.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I was similar to you in that I was working a lot. I started business back in the 90s. I found myself about 340 pounds and I was pre-diabetic. My daughter was born. So I just I said, this is it. I'm not going to be around. I ate half of what I didn't know services like yours existed, but I just ate half of what I did before, and I just worked out every day. I lost 100 pounds in about 7, 8 months, and I did a bunch of triathlons. But still, some 15 years later, I feel occasionally that 340-pound person is trying to get out. So
Well, he probably is, believe it or
yeah,
not, because all of those foods that I was eating are addictive.
right.
And big food, big chemical, and big pharma don't want us to win because obesity is big business. I
Hmm.
had a weight problem my whole life. I am only halfway there. I've lost 65 pounds without
Wow.
dieting, and I've done it because I'm eating real food. And what was going on was we have two little hormones I didn't even know about called leptin and ghrelin, and they control appetite. And all those chemicals in processed food that you can't pronounce and don't know what they are, well, they turn those two hormones off. So I would eat this huge Thanksgiving dinner and then be in the kitchen slicing away at the pumpkin pie until it was all going, how can I be hungry? I just ate that huge meal. Well, I wasn't hungry, but my brain didn't register that I was already full, which is why I was slicing away at that pumpkin pie. So I now run detoxes to get people, and it only takes a couple of weeks for it the most to detox off all that stuff. And when you
Hmm.
start to replace it with real phytonutrients, your body isn't hysterical that it has to hold on to the only morsel of real food that it got. So it can start to release it because you're eating phytonutrients, you're eating the rainbow, you're getting all the different phytonutrients from all the colors, which is giving your body the building blocks to replace all your cells, which every cell in your body has a shelf life and they're replacing themselves all the time. So if you're feeding your body phytonutrients, it's got big, healthy phytonutrients to build the brick house instead of the
Wow.
straw house that the wolf can blow down. So the whole thing is, that's why I said I'd become a biochemist because I'm fascinated with the whole
Yeah.
thing. But I've now run 2 classes through my detox off of processed food and sugar because they're both the culprit. And
Hmm.
I actually had somebody who was pre-diabetic go back out the other end and become not diabetic at all. In
Wow.
4 weeks, her doctor was flabbergasted. But everybody is saying they didn't think they could do it in the beginning. They were sure they couldn't give up sugar, and now they're not only off the sugar, but they're sustaining it because they can eat small amounts and not get grabbed again by that. Those two hormones start to work their way they're supposed to.
It's incredible. So many people that I know lost so much weight and then they just gain it back. I mean, the American public is addicted to sugar. Is that correct?
That is correct. And sugar interferes with how every single organ in your body operates.
Hmm.
They even now think that sugar is diabetes type 3 and is causing dementia as we age.
Wow.
So sugar, now, does that mean I don't eat any sugar at all? No, but I sure don't eat anywhere near as much as I used to. And now pretty much I'm eating coconut sugar, which is low glycemic when I bake, or I'm eating small amounts of real sugar, little bits of maple syrup or honey that also have some benefit to the body, but I don't crave it the way I used to. And if I eat a cookie, I don't eat the entire package. All of that is gone.
That
So
takes a
that's
lot of
huge.
discipline. Yeah.
No, actually, once you detox, it doesn't take any discipline at all. You don't want it.
Interesting. Right. You just don't want it anymore.
Right.
And you look at everyday common things like ketchup. There's so much sugar in ketchup.
But there's now a new line that makes ketchup without the sugar.
Without the sugar, yeah. And how about sugar substitutes?
Oh, they're even worse.
Yeah.
One is a neurotoxin, and the other one destroys all your good gut bacteria. So you don't want to take the yellow, the pink, or the blue packet because they're doing damage as serious as the sugar is. I actually have a meme where ants are walking around a lollipop that has the blue packet in it because they know they don't want it. They don't want to have
Fascinating.
anything
You
to do
mentioned
with it.
coffee at one point.
Yeah, now
And
coffee and
so,
I have had an interesting relationship. I am drinking
yeah.
coffee again, but I'm only drinking coffee if I wake up and I'm not exhausted. Because if I drink too much coffee and I'm going back to my fatigue, which is one of the symptoms of autoimmune disease, then the coffee is over energizing my adrenals and then I don't need it, which is when you would think you would want to have 1, 2, or 3 cups of coffee. So I'm very careful with when I drink it. But coffee's a dirty crop, so I only drink organic coffee because I don't want all the chemicals that are on that. And those chemicals are as destructive as the sugar is, and they're on everything. And I need to go back and explain what GMOs are because they are
Please.
really horrific. There are 2 kinds of GMOs. Who knew? One is called Bt toxin. It grows right up in the plant, and when the bug bites it, it blows him up. So bad news is it's blowing up our bees and our butterflies. But even worse than that is when it gets into our stomach, it's blowing up all our good gut bacteria. And we need our good gut bacteria in order for our mitochondria to survive. So you don't want to be eating that. They thought it was going to go into our bodies and go right back out of our bodies. Well, it's the gift that keeps on giving when it gets into our gut, and it creates whatever good minerals we're getting from the plant in the first place. And we've depleted the earth, so our earth is as depleted of nutrients as our bodies are.
Mm.
So Bt toxin's not a good thing. The second kind of GMO is even worse. And that's been a plant that has been made GMO ready, which means that it is drenched in Roundup, which is glyphosate, which 2 years ago lost a lawsuit because it gave a guy who was spraying a schoolyard cancer. And they got the discovery, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the son, got the discovery from Monsanto that they had known that it was creating cancer for over 20 years. And so they
Oh my
lost the
God.
lawsuit. Now, while the lawsuit was being determined, Bayer bought Monsanto. Now, don't feel bad for Bayer because they've been doing all the payouts because they were setting up the perfect storm. Not only were they setting up that you were going to get sick from the food, but then you were going to have to buy all their drugs. And at this point, they have paid out billions of dollars to people who have gotten cancer from Roundup. But here's the bad news. They're still spraying it on our genetically modified crops and on much of our conventional crops, which is why I am an enormous advocate of buy organic. And people will say to me, but I can't afford it. Well, you're going to pay now or you're going to pay later. And one of the guys that I studied said, have you studied how expensive it is to have cancer these days? That should convince you
Mm.
why you want to eat organic. Now, if you can't afford it, I actually have, in my book, I have a chapter on 30 ways to save on food because there are ways to save on food. But you start with the EWG's Dirty Dozen list, and you never buy those unless they're organic because you don't want poison with every bite of food that you're doing. Your body can't handle that, and eventually it catches up. And the one thing I didn't tell you is it can take as long as 20 years for toxic load to topple over the top. It's building
Wow.
up in your body long before you're even aware that it's going on.
Incredible. And oh boy, that's just so much to The other issue with organic is, isn't there kind of a sliding scale as to the level of how much something is organic and how isn't? It gets a bit confusing.
Yeah, well, number one, there's certified organic. If it's
Mm,
certified organic, and not everything I buy is, but if it's certified organic, the amount of hoops that an organic grower has to go through, God, I wish they would put our conventional crops being grown
really?
through those hoops, because the amount of bookkeeping and how you have to keep it separate from any other kind of produce, and it is a astronomical thing to keep that food as clean as it is to get it certified. And so there's a reason why organic food is more expensive if it's certified, because those people, they at any moment, they've got to be able to prove that there's been no chemicals that would be destructive to your body near that food. I buy a lot of my food at farmers markets. I love farmers markets. You can meet people who are also healthy. It's a great
Mm,
place to make new friends. And if you talk to your farmers and you get to know them, you find out what they're doing. And there's a lot of people growing clean crops without the chemicals, without all of the, and there's more than just Roundup or glyphosate. There's atrazine and all kinds of things being sprayed on our food. Chlorophyll or something that's causing brain damage in children is being sprayed on our food. But if you
goodness.
talk to your farmer, they'll tell you if they're putting a nettle around their plants to keep the bugs off. There's other ways to grow clean food, and I trust them. Should I trust them? I don't know. I'm a city girl. I don't go to farms very often. I wouldn't know what I was looking at if I did. So the bottom line is you do the best you can and you don't get twisty about it. But if I eat something with glyphosate, my body tells me almost immediately.
Hmm.
Um, I have a conversation every morning when I get up, when I look in the mirror. How you feeling today? And if I'm not feeling good, I'm like a little computer that goes through what did I do yesterday that's put me a little off today? And then I adjust immediately. And I think most people are walking around feeling lousy with no clue that they're feeling lousy because they're not in touch with their body. So as an example, I thought I was very sensitive to gluten in bread. We went to Italy on our honeymoon. I ate pasta like crazy. Ends
Mm,
up I got
mm,
no problem with gluten at all. I was having a
mm.
problem with the fact that they were drenching our wheat in glyphosate. My body is, my husband calls it a smoke alarm that will find a toxic chemical within a 50-mile radius. My body tells me it's not happy. And so you have to get into the habit of asking your body, it's amazingly smart, how are you feeling? And then getting quiet enough, long enough to let your body answer. And then you adjust and then you clean up and then you make sure you eat all the colors again so that your body can help it heal. It's all important, but your body can tell you how it's doing.
It'll reward you, won't it? Even after working
Yeah,
out, your body rewards you. You talk about, you just kind of mentioned right there, you've got to eat the rainbow.
I'm big on that. And why? Because when they get together, they party in your body. They
Hmm.
need each other. There's a synergy that's created from all the different colors, and each one has its own specialty. So if you're only eating red, that's great for your immune system. It's great if you have cancer, but you're not getting the things that you need from the full spectrum, and your body needs the full spectrum. And again, I said every cell in your body has a shelf life, so you need the full spectrum so that you have all those great building supplies to rebuild your cells. And let me give you an idea. Your gut lining, leaky gut, good old leaky gut where I started, it replaces itself every 6 days. So if you don't have great building supplies in your body, it's building from inferior building supplies. And so it's not going to hold up the same way. Your lung lining, rather important in the age of COVID-19, replaces itself every 2 weeks. We
Hmm.
need that. Your lower gut lining replaces itself every 3 days. It's really corrosive down there, so it can't make it longer than that. So your body's constantly pulling from your phytonutrients to rebuild the walls down there. And you have an opening to the outside world from your mouth all the way down to the bottom. And so that's the part of you that gets the worst abuse. But it's also the most important part of your
Hmm.
body. So you need, your brain even replaces itself. They used to think that you started off with certain brain cells and you died with them. Well, nope, you're replacing brain cells too, but it's just not as quick. Your skin replaces itself, I think, every 2 months.
Wow.
And all of our skin diseases, psoriasis, eczema, acne, dry skin, that's all an inside job. It starts in your gut. So you
Are you a
clean up your
vegetarian?
gut. Am I a vegetarian? No. I eat what I call pagan. Because I am diabetic, I am on my way, I am now pre-diabetic and on my way out.
Good.
But because of that, I discovered that my body wants meat. So what kind of meat do I eat? I eat meat that eats his own species specific diet, which means a cow has two guts. He is built to eat grass. He is
Yeah.
not built to eat GMO corn. So I eat grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And my body feels good on that. And I get almost the same phytonutrients because he ate all the phytonutrients. So not only are you what you eat, you are what your animal eats. So that means now chicken happens to be one of my sensitivities. I used to eat so much chicken I thought I was going to cluck because we were in our don't eat beef phase. Well, I can't eat chicken now. I immediately get inflammation. But if I were to eat chicken, and I do eat chicken eggs, I only eat the ones that are free run out in the field that eat grass and berries and bugs. They taste better. Their eggs taste better. They don't have all the stress hormones of either being in cages or so close to each other, cage free, that their stress hormones have gone berserk. Trust me, you got enough stress hormones of your own. You don't need them from the animal. So the animals I eat are also humanely treated, and that makes a difference. So I eat bison because he likes grass. I eat lamb because he likes grass. I eat grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And if I were to eat chicken, I would eat free-run chicken. I do eat free-run turkey. And then I eat wild fish. And I'm lucky because my farmer's market has a fish lady that has the best fish I ever ate in my life.
Wow.
She's been in the business. Her family was in the business. She knows even if it's been farmed in icky chemicals or if it's been farmed in something closed off in the ocean. And I trust her fish and it's fantastic. So, and then, there are other things that you need to have as building blocks. You need omega-3 oils. Those are your olive oils and your avocado oils. And I can't have dairy. I'm dairy sensitive, but I can have ghee because ghee has had the milk solids removed, and that leaves something called CLA oil, which is super good for the body. So I use ghee. I cook in ghee. I get the butter taste without the butter, which is fabulous. And it's a healthy oil, and it's an omega-3 oil. The big wrinkle in all of that, there are some others. Coconut oil, unless you have a heart problem, apparently there's some disagreement as to whether or not coconut's good for your heart, but it's really good for your brain. So if you don't have a heart issue, then you should be using some coconut oil. Grapeseed oil is good for you. But of all of them, olive oil you don't want to cook with because it has a very low smoke point, and when it starts to smoke, it becomes toxic. So olive oil is important for salads. But olive oil even has a wrinkle. The mafia got involved in the olive oil industry. So they started taking the olive oil and cutting it with all of the omega-6 GMO oils. So it gets cut with corn oil and soy oil. 95% of soy, by the way, is genetically modified. So they're cutting it. So California regulates it. If you buy California olive oil, you know you're getting olive oil. But the Italians and the Spaniards weren't so giving up their olive oil industry that easy. So they now certify when they trace the olive from the tree to the bottle. And I used to wonder why some olive oils were so expensive and some were so cheap. That's why. Food quality matters, and yes, it is more expensive, but your body gets to utilize it differently. And in the long run, eating poor quality food is what's wrong with our healthcare system. It's why everything is so expensive in healthcare. Our insurance companies and our healthcare system can't keep up with all the chemicals we're putting in our bodies. So in the long run, if you pay the money up front, you don't get sick down the road. So it's got its advantages. And when I'm working with a client, the first thing we do is look at where are they spending their money now? If they're starting every morning to buy a coffee on the way to work, it's probably not an organic coffee cup.
Right.
And it's probably costing them 3, 4 times the amount of money it would cost them to make it at home and take it in a stainless steel container. So we find places where we can save money so that we can spend it on quality food because it's that important.
How about alcohol?
Alcohol, now, I can't because I am on a compounded thyroid medication that I can't have alcohol. But the rule is if you're a female, not more than 1 drink a day. And if you're a male, not more than 2 drinks a day, because everything goes through your liver. Every toxin that you come in contact with in your skin or your gut, everything goes through your liver, and alcohol goes through your liver. And as I commented, fatty liver is the #1 cause of heart disease, even more so than smoking. That one sort of threw me. So you want to give your liver really extra loving care because your liver is working really hard with every single chemical that it's coming in contact with, whether it's coming in through the air or through your skin or wherever, it's got to do something with it. And it does everything it can until it can't anymore. And when it can't anymore, because there's only 3 ways to get it out of you. Again, back out through your skin, through your kidneys, or out through the bottom. So when it can't get them all out anymore, it starts to stuff them into your fat. And alcohol just exasperates it. So, and most people have fatty livers and don't even know it. I didn't know I had one. We went to go look at a gynecological thing and it picked it up on the CAT scan that I had a fatty liver. But it made sense because I had had Epstein-Barr or mono in my 20s and my liver enzymes had been off ever since. And I had taken massive amounts of Tylenol my whole life, which did much more damage to my liver than they ever dreamt possible. It's the one that attacks the liver. So I don't take any over-the-counter medications anymore. I have found natural things that do the same things, but you need to really love your liver. I did 3 podcasts on the liver, what its function is, what to eat to support it, and what supplements you can take to run past your physician to make sure they won't interfere with any of your medications, but what supplements will support it, because I think it's that important. And my podcast is a combination of me just talking what I've learned about health, and then me talking to other people who got chronic illness, owned it, took responsibility, cleaned up their lifestyle, and came back to general wellness. And so I want people to hear more stories than just mine so that they know that wherever they are with their health, it's not where they have to end up. That there are people just like them who have taken on whatever that health problem is and have come back to health. You need a pretty big why to do it. Like the 2 men that I talked about that had heart attacks, both were in their early 40s, both had little children, both had a huge why to return. But one of them I loved, he said, everybody keeps asking me, where's the magic pill? And I keep telling them, there isn't one. It's you. You're the magic pill. You have to become proactive with what you put into your body and how you move and how you breathe and exercise. You're the person who can make the difference.
Have to get disciplined. Yeah. So let's talk about pills themselves. So you're not advocating never to take pharmaceuticals.
Nope. I do take some pharmaceuticals, but I'm advocating when your doctor puts you on a pill, go home and research. #1, one of the pills I was on because I was diabetic is metformin. Metformin cleates magnesium out of my body. We couldn't figure out why I couldn't hold on to magnesium because I take one every morning and one every afternoon and one every night. And it's because the metformin is interacting with my magnesium. So, okay, now I know that. So now I know I have to make up for that. But I also you have a conversation, even if he's a conventional doctor, with you want me to go on to this medication? How long do I have to be on it? And what can I do to get off of it? Because there are things that you can do to get yourself back off that medication. And pills, no matter what they are, they don't want you to know this, they give us and they take us away. They have a benefit and they have a downside. You know all those things they say at lightning speed on the ad on the TV commercial? Well, those are all true things. And they will also catch up with you eventually. So start to research when you go onto a medication. What can you do so that you can eventually wean yourself off? I'm working with a woman right now who has a fatty liver. Her doctor's blown away that she is making huge strides without taking the pills that he wanted her to take. Now, had she gone on the pills, that would have been fine as long as we had an exit strategy. And that's what you want to put into place. Tylenol is hard on the liver. Aspirin, ibuprofen, Aleve, they're all really hard on your gut. And so you know that aspirin causes ulcers. Well, ibuprofen isn't that much easier on your gut. So yeah, we take them and we think they're safe because they're over the counter, but they're not safe. And so what do I take now when I have pain? I take the active ingredient from turmeric, which is called curcumin. It is bright yellow. At first, I was trying to open them up and mix them with olive oil, and man, that stuff stained your fingers. So now I just take it in a capsule form, but quality with supplements also matters. Just don't go taking any curcumin that's in a soy capsule with lots of fillers. You want to take a better supplement so that it does what it's supposed to do. I take it for pain, I take it for headaches, and it's the gift that doesn't give you any downside at all. For hay fever, I have horrible hay fever. I've had it my whole life. I've taken every hay fever medication known to man. I now take a natural thing called quercetin. Quercetin comes from a plant. It is nature's natural histamine, antihistamine. And it's a gift that gives gifts. It's good for my gut. It's good for my liver. It's good for my brain. It's good for my kidneys. It's even good for my heart and my lungs. And it works better than any pharmaceutical ever worked on my hay fever. So you look for things. There's a lot of herbs and spices that have all kinds of benefits to the body. Now, will they all work the same on you as they work on me? Maybe, maybe not. But you need to get involved. They're not going to hurt you. At least give them a try so that you can eventually wean yourself off the pharmaceutical.
Somebody turned me on to, I thought it was pronounced quercetin, but quercetin, yeah, and it's amazing.
I might be mispronouncing it. Yeah, I never actually heard anybody say it.
Yeah, it's really incredible how some of the I end up taking a lot of supplements just to remove myself from that. Where do you stand on intermittent fasting?
I do fast, but it isn't what I originally thought it was. We eat dinner at 7 o'clock at night, and then we don't eat breakfast until about 11:30. So that's my fasting period. I never was hungry when I got up in the morning anyway, and they tell you have to eat breakfast. Well, guess what? It's good for you to let your body rest that long and to fast that long. And then you want to make sure that you get a good protein breakfast of some sort, whether you're vegan, vegetarian, paleo, or pagan. I don't care, but you need a quality protein along with your rainbow. And you need to get that rainbow in as much as you can through the day. And you want to buy it from a farm as close to you as possible. Easy for me to say. I live in Arizona and California where there's farms everywhere. But the reason you want to get it from a farm as close to you as possible, at least in the summer and the spring, is because then they pick it the night before, you buy it and you eat it. So it is at maximum nutrition. And you want all of those guys at their best. You want them to be good and strong and ready to go. If you don't live next to a farm in the winter, eat it frozen, where it's been frozen right after it got picked. Or now grocery stores are carrying a lot of organic, but it could take as long as a month to reach your grocer.
Wow.
I just did a podcast on how I take my traveling lunch with me by building rainbow salads in canning jars. And I'm going to make it into a podcast by extending it with how long a vegetable holds on to its nutrition once it's picked and how long it takes to get to you. Because all of that stuff is stuff I think we all need to know. It's a really good reason to shop as much as you can at your local farmer's market.
Sure. Yeah. I have relatives in Italy, and I spent a lot of time in southern Italy, and they all have very small refrigerators because they're getting it from the farm and they're eating it within a couple of days. They don't need these big refrigerators to stock stuff for weeks at a time.
they're eating it quickly and they're eating it fresh. And I remember I was with some of my friends and my uncle pulled eggs out of a cupboard and not out of the refrigerator. And my friends freaked out. What's going to happen? I said, those eggs are only days old. They didn't need to be refrigerated. It's a
Right.
very big difference. Let's talk about toxins specific. So what advice can you give, simple steps for everyday people, Americans worldwide, to remove toxins?
Okay. Start with your food. That's why I think it's so important to buy organic, or at least start with the dirty dozen. If it's on the dirty list, you buy it organic, whether you're buying it at the grocery store or where you're buying it organic because you don't want that heavy toxic chemical going in with your food. Then I would go to your water. Water, people seem to think Flint, Michigan is an unusual situation. Flint, Michigan is not unusual. Water systems all over our country are loaded with toxins. And think about it. People are throwing out pharmaceuticals down their toilet. That all goes into the water system. We are spraying our crops heavily with all kinds of chemicals. That's going down into our groundwater. It's going out into our streams. It's going out to the ocean. There are toxins in our water, and you can get a water report from your city or your county that will tell you what's in your water. Now, where I live in LA, we have our own water that comes down from the mountains. I live right at the foot of the San Gabriel Mountains. So I have cleaner water than most people in the United States, but I still have some crud in my water. And so I bought it. It was from Aquasana, was recommended by the first naturopath that I saw. And it went under my sink so that the water I drank and the water I cooked with came from that water system, and it was $150. You change the filters. It's not very expensive. And then you never drink it from plastic. You buy stainless steel bottles. Yep. And you take your water with you. Now, what do I do when I'm going to be gone longer than one bottle? I have big jugs that I fill up in my kitchen that I keep in my car. It keeps the water cool and refreshing, even if it's been in there for a while, and I refill my own bottles. What's wrong with plastic water? Number one, you're paying 1,200 times more for it. So that's a place where you can save money. The toxins from the plastic are leaching into the water, so you don't need those in your body. Those are endocrine disruptors, which is why our little girls and our little boys are maturing so much earlier. So you don't want that. But even worse than that, it's letting little microbes, little balls of plastic loose in the water. So you're drinking little balls of water that are going and interfering with your body systems. So the only time I drink water from a plastic bottle is if I'm on an airplane, because they won't let me in with water in my stainless steel container. But other than that, I carry my water with me. Now, if we're on a road trip and I can't take that much water with me, I buy spring water. And yes, it does come in plastic, but it's the best I can do. So that's a place where you don't get twisty because you're doing as best as you can all the rest of the times in your life. And I pack my stainless bottles in my luggage when I'm traveling so that when I get to the other end, I still have my good filtered water with me. So water is a biggie. The next big category is, what the heck are you cleaning with? Even the list that the government put out for things we should be cleaning with during COVID, many of them were now on this scale. It's A through F. EWG gave them D's and F's. So I have a blog on my site of what I found by looking it up on EWG is not as toxic, especially if you have children. You don't want all those chemicals around them. And they're mostly things that are hydrogen peroxide based. Not all hydrogen peroxide based things are low toxin, but they're going to be less toxic than things that have Lysol and bleach and those chemicals in them that are not good for you. I found an amazing cleaner called Branch Basics, which are plant enzymes, and they don't even register as a 1 on the EWG scale. Wow. And I fell in love with it the minute I found it, because I do eat a lot of eggs for protein in the morning, and I hate the way it sticks to my plate. So I spray my plate after I eat, put it in the sink for 5 minutes, go back, and it washes right off because the little plant enzymes have eaten it. I use it to do my laundry. I use it to clean my toilets. I use it to wash my dishes. And she would die if she knew I told you this, but I made salad dressing out of it accidentally one night and we ate it. And neither one of us got sick. I kept going, this doesn't taste like it has vinegar in it. Something's wrong. Well, it ended up I had used Branch Basics in my salad dressing, but that will tell you how clean it is.
Right.
And
Right.
she's an environmental toxin expert. She's one of the people I interviewed for my show because she had a son that was environmentally poisoned and they told her he would never even graduate from high school. He got so well, he became an Air Force officer and a pilot because
Wow.
she cleaned up all the
Wow.
toxins in their life. And her recommendation, which I love, is you start with the lowest, the last ingredient on the label when you start to look things up. It's the
Hmm.
smallest amount. And then you go up the list until you hit something toxic. And if you hit something toxic, you put it in a plastic bin and take it out to the garage because that means it's off-gassing into your house and you don't want that. Then if you're going to
Wow.
use it, you go out to the garage, you get it, you use it and you put it back and you start to look for something that's less toxic that you can leave in your house and not have to go through that. But you keep going up the list until you hit the toxic items and then you make the decision that you need to
Hmm.
replace it. Um, and I recommend when you do my book, it took me 5 years to remove all these things. You can't
Right.
do it all at once, you'll go bankrupt. So if
Right.
somebody buys my book, if you write to me, I'll send you a workbook where you write down what you find is toxic in your life. And then when you run out of the old icky thing, it's at your fingertips what you're going to replace it with so that you're not spending a fortune to get everything traded back out. And each toxic item that you remove is one step closer to health.
Hmm.
And then when we're talking cleaning supplies, I got to tell you about fragrances. Fragrances are poison, whether you're
Right.
spraying them on yourself with perfume or it's that thing you're plugging into your living room to let the fragrance go. And one of the ads that makes me nuts is that laundry detergent ad where she's smelling it and she's in ecstasy. She's poisoning herself every time she does that.
Wow.
Those scents are horrifically toxic. So even the one that takes the fragrances out of the air is toxic. So if you have to have something that you're putting in your air, make it an organic um, essential oil that you're diffusing because that probably won't hurt you, but it could hurt your pet. Some are bad for dogs, some are bad for cats, so do your research. And in my second book, I have a list of which is which so that you don't poison your poor dog or cat because they're living in toxic soup too. So
Candles?
candles, the scents are not good for you.
Wow.
I know. Who knew?
Even soy-based ones?
Even soy-based. If it's a soy-based fragrance-free candle, then sure. But if it's got fragrance in it, that fragrance is probably not good for you.
My goodness. So toxins in food and water and cleaning, the fragrances. See a functional
Laundry
doctor.
detergents.
Laundry
Yeah,
detergent.
laundry detergents, dryer sheets. The thing that happened to me right before I went over into toxic load was I knew I was getting rashes from when I did my drying with dryer sheets. So I put them way
Wow.
up on a back shelf in my laundry room. Somebody came and stayed with me and she did me a favor and she did my laundry and she found them and used it. And I woke up that morning with my lips, my tongue, and my eyes practically swollen shut.
Wow.
Ends up fabric softeners and dryer sheets are amongst the most toxic things in your house. So in those little pods that we do laundry with, if a
Yeah,
toddler
yeah.
was to bite into one of those, you probably can't even get them to emergency. They are that toxic. So find yourself, that's why I do my laundry in Branch Basics or in a really low toxin um, laundry detergent. And you want to make sure it's one, they don't have to tell EWG what they're using in their laundry detergent. So make sure you do one that's rated because if it's a proprietary formula, you can't trust it and it might
Wow.
have things in it that are not good for you.
Toxins and removing them, like you say, you don't want to do it overnight. You want to phase it out over years like you
Yeah,
did. You want to see a functional doctor as well, not just a
right.
medical doctor.
Now, the downside for functional doctors is that
Yeah.
most of them do not take insurance. They're
Yes.
worth it, but they don't take insurance. Mine does. There is something called concierge medicine popping up where you pay so much every month and then you get so many visits. So there's two of those in Los Angeles. There's my doctor in Los Angeles and a couple of others. So you need to do your research when you pick someone or you know you're going to go and sort of get your finger on what the root cause is with the doctor, and then you're going to go back to conventional doctor and take over the research on your own. But seeing a functional doctor that doesn't take insurance can get expensive. Mine even takes Medicare. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, but you need to be responsible for whether they do or not before you go there so that you know what you're up against. But I will tell you, absolutely, they are worth it. My husband also sees my functional doctor now. He can't get over the difference. It's like night and day. And my doctor
Wow.
spends an average of 40 minutes with me per appointment. It's no more
Huh.
of this one thing and drop out the pill anymore. She researches, I research, we get together, we come up with a plan until I'm going to see her next, and then we go off for me to implement. Um, which is why I will always have autoimmune disease, but I no longer have any pain at all. That's enormous.
Absolutely amazing. Cheryl Meyer, you are an inspiration. I love what you're doing out there. Thanks for spending this time with me. I took lots of notes. Hopefully our listeners will as well. Let's go over how people can get in touch with you, your book, your podcast, your blogs, your sites.
There's two core words. The first one is Cheryl with a C, M like Mary, health, Muse, M-U-S-E, because I want to inspire you to clean up and live a healthier life. So if you go to .com, you'll go to my website, tons of information on my website. So go noodle around. It's a great place to get started with your health journey. If you go to Facebook, CherylMHealthMuse will take you to one of my pages. It'll take you to my Instagram. I'm just Cheryl Meyer on LinkedIn, and I'm Cheryl M. Health Muse on Pinterest. So that's where you find me with all of that. The other key word is my book is called It Feels Good to Feel Good.
Good to feel good, yeah.
And so my podcast is called It Feels Good to Feel Good. The
Great
ending
name.
is different. My podcast is Future Proof Your Health, because whether or not you have a chronic illness or you don't want to go there, I want you to listen to my podcast. And I have a theory that even if you have chronic illness in your genetics and you don't want to go there, you live like you got it now so that you never do go there. If you clean up today, epigenetics has proven that just because it's in our genetics, we have the choice to turn that switch on or leave that switch off. So I want you to go listen to both my solo and my interviews on my podcast, because they share tons of information so you never have to go where I went. So the It Feels Good to Feel Good is the key way to find that. And it's on Voice America, and it's in 80 countries.
Wow.
So it's
Incredible.
out there. And then I do have a private Facebook group that talks all things health, which is not just toxins. I talk health, I talk gratitude, I talk stress and breathing. And there's actually chapters of my first book about stress and how to avoid it, because stress causes leaky gut, anxiety causes leaky gut, sleep. It's imperative to get 7 continuous hours of sleep. There's a new study out of Berkeley. And the reason that I got my attention is that 7th hour is when your brain cleans all the plaque out. And I don't want to lose my cognizance. So that's rather important. So there's chapters in my book about all of those things, which are important. Why it's important to move.
That's a good point.
That's
We
as
didn't talk about
important.
exercise.
Yeah, and I have a chapter in my book, Exercise for People Who Don't Like to Exercise, because that would be me. You have to find something that you like. I love to get outside. I love to get into nature. So that's one thing I do. And then I bought a rebounder because my lymph system is all mucked up. That's why my adrenals are having such a hard time. And by just wiggling on my I call it my mini trampoline. That helps my lymph system go around all my cells and clean out all the garbage and get it out of my body. So that's how I exercise. Everybody's different. So find something that you enjoy that you will do, because movement is really, really important. And then there's even a chapter in my first book on toxic relationships, because they come in all forms and sizes, whether it's a toxic employee, a toxic boss, a toxic love relationship, a toxic friend, a toxic parent. You have to learn to speak up for yourself, set boundaries, and take care of that because it's making you sick.
My goodness, Cheryl Meyer, thank you so much. I love what you're doing, and so many people, that passed away from COVID. We learned that had other illnesses or were obese and fit in these other kind of secondary categories that aided to that. I mean, what you're doing, hope we want to help. We want to get America healthy again. Wouldn't it have been great, by the way? I'll just say this little political thing is that during all this, the government said, "Hey, let's get really healthy now. This makes
Yeah,
this
well,
opportunity."
and people actually ask me that on social media all the time. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not going to happen, and it's because there's too much money, honey.
money.
Our politicians are all hooked into conventional farming, the pharmaceutical companies. It's too much money. There's a couple that get it. The guy who's running for senator in Ohio is a huge advocate of cleaning up food, and he's really close to the most famous functional practitioner, which is Dr. Mark Hyman. He gets it, but most of them, they don't know about it. They don't want to know about it, which is why we're in such a mess with climate change too. But you can make a difference in your own life if you own it. You can make the difference to buy the products that are good for your body. Because since you know your government's not going to protect you, the responsibility always was ultimately yours. I'd
Very
like to
true.
tell you we're looking at a
Thank you so
different
much for
world,
your
but we're
time
not.
today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
But it is getting
Obviously, I
better.
love to talk about this.
Yes, you're very well, and I love what you're doing. And our listeners, I'm going to put everything in the show notes, all your links and everything. Thanks so much for your time today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Have a great day.
Thank you.